the stars had forgotten Earth. For centuries, the galaxy had turned its gaze elsewhere, to empires rising and collapsing in distant constellations, to wars waged across nebulae, to wonders unearthed in the heart of dying suns. Earth, once whispered about in ancient records, became nothing more than a dismissed footnote. A quiet, overlooked blue world orbiting a modest star, insignificant, unguarded, unclaimed. But silence often hides the oldest of secrets. Beneath the crust of the forgotten planet, sealed away in a prison of stone and time, something slumbered. Not a machine. Not a relic. Not even a god. It was a guardian. Forged when the first human civilization still burned fires under open skies, this being had been Earth's last promise, a sentinel woven from steel and storm, a titan bound by oaths too ancient for mortal tongues to remember. When the great wars of the heavens passed and Earth was spared, it was entombed in shadow, its purpose unfulfilled, its legend erased, waiting for the moment destiny would call it forth again. And destiny was stirring. The galaxy above had grown greedy. Fleets of alien warlords prowled the void, each clawing for dominion. The Council of Imperial Stars, arrogant in their dominion, cast their decree: Earth would be taken. Its oceans mined, its skies stripped, its people chained. No one objected. Why would they? To them, Earth was dust. But in the deep, cold silence below Earth's mantle, cracks were forming in the Guardian's tomb. Sensors it did not know it still possessed flared to life. Signals screamed through its ancient frame. The forgotten oath began to burn. And when its eyes opened, the heavens themselves trembled. The first sign came as a tremor. To the people of Earth, it was nothing unusual, just another ripple of the restless planet, shrugged off as an earthquake in the southern oceans. Cities quivered, sensors flickered, and the news spoke of tectonic activity with calm dismissal. Yet in the deepest trenches of the Pacific, far beyond where light dared travel, the world's crust split open with a soundless scream. Something ancient had stirred. The breach was not witnessed by man, but by the machines of others. Across the void, in the command chambers of the Zitharon Dominion, an officer watched his monitors in disbelief. The Dominion was one of the largest arms of the Galactic Council, conquerors by trade, slavers by choice. They had charted Earth's oceans, prepared the blue planet for exploitation. What they had not expected was an energy spike unlike anything catalogued in their archives. "Report," barked the overseer, his voice like metal scraping glass. Unregistered power surge from planetary core. Magnitude, immeasurable. Comparable to an active warforge. The overseer's tendrils froze mid-motion. A warforge was the kind of technology only the oldest starfaring empires still commanded. But Earth was supposed to be primitive. A planet with no shields, no fleet, no claimants. The overseer's eyes narrowed. Investigate. And so, the first fleet descended. On Earth, night had just fallen when the skies began to shimmer with unfamiliar light. Humanity, in its innocence, gazed upward in awe. They thought it was a meteor shower, or perhaps some spectacular solar flare. But the truth was darker. Warships the size of cities slipped into the atmosphere, silent leviathans cloaked in cold fire. They cast shadows over oceans and plains. Their descent tore open clouds with thunder not born of storms, but of engines that had burned worlds to ash. No warning was given. No parley offered. Humanity was not an enemy to be negotiated with, it was prey. In the coastal city of Manila, a boy named Elias watched from his rooftop as the sky split. His grandmother whispered of omens, of old tales his people once spoke, of giants who slept beneath the earth, guardians who would rise when the world itself cried out. Elias did not understand her words, but her trembling hands clutched him as though the stories were no longer stories. Because in that same hour, the ocean itself rebelled. Waves rose higher than mountains, not in destruction, but in response. A pulse of light surged from the trench below, cutting through leagues of black water, piercing the clouds, reaching into the stars like a beacon no eye could ignore. The Overseer's fleet froze in its descent. Their sensors wailed warnings. Their hulls shook as the frequency pierced their shields. They had seen something like this once, long ago, in the archives of conquests past. "Impossible," whispered the Overseer. His tendrils curled as memory struck like a knife. This world, it was supposed to be barren of defense. The Guardian protocols should have ended eons ago. Yet the evidence screamed otherwise. Deep below the crust, the tomb of stone and steel cracked apart. Dust older than civilizations fell like ash into a cavern carved by forgotten hands. The slumbering colossus lay within, a being half machine, half myth, its form cloaked in plates that shimmered with inscriptions no living tongue could translate. For millennia it had lain in silence, locked by codes written in the blood of stars. Now, the codes unraveled. A hum filled the chamber, a resonance that shook Earth's bones. The Guardian's eyes, vast and unblinking, lit with a storm of silver fire. Its first breath was not air, but thunder. The lost Guardian of Earth had awakened. And the heavens froze in shock. Across the galaxy, observatories trembled as their instruments shattered beneath the surge of energy. Old empires stirred, recalling whispers of the Earth Guardian, a myth spoken of in hushed tones. A sentinel created not by empire, but by Earth itself, birthed to defend when no one else would. The Council of Imperial Stars convened in haste. Voices shouted across the chamber. Some demanded Earth be eradicated before the Guardian's strength could return. Others warned that to provoke it was to provoke extinction itself. But it was already too late. The Overseer's fleet, stationed above Earth, trembled as a single, colossal silhouette broke the ocean's surface. Water cascaded like rivers down its armored limbs as it rose, higher and higher, blotting out the moon. Lightning danced across its form as though the atmosphere itself bowed in reverence. Humanity watched in awe and terror. They had no name for what they saw, some called it a titan, others an angel of steel. But in their hearts, they knew. It was theirs. It had always been theirs. And when the Overseer commanded his fleet to fire, the heavens themselves bore witness to a truth older than empire. Earth was never unguarded. The first volley of plasma fire streaked toward the Guardian, enough to melt cities to glass. But the Colossus raised its arm, and the air itself bent. The beams split apart, dissolving into harmless sparks before they could touch the ground. The Overseer recoiled in disbelief. That was no shield. That was. He never finished the thought. The Guardian raised its gaze skyward. For the first time in millennia, its voice echoed, not in sound, but in resonance, carried into the minds of every living thing on Earth and beyond. I am Sentinel Arcanes. Bound to the soil of Earth. Forged for its defense. You who trespass, turn back, or face the storm. The Overseer laughed, though his voice wavered. One relic cannot stand against a fleet. But even as he spoke, the stars above seemed to dim. Clouds swirled in unnatural patterns. The seas churned in violent crescents. The earth itself answered the Guardian's call. Humanity watched, breathless. For the first time, they understood, the planet they had always thought fragile was not alone. It had always been waiting, watching, guarding. And now its Guardian stood once more. The Overseer, pale with fury, bared his fangs. So be it. Let the relic fall. The order was given. Thousands of warships roared to life, unleashing their fury. The sky lit with fire brighter than any dawn. And as the first storm of war ignited above the blue planet, the Guardian of Earth stepped forward, into battle. The night sky became a crucible of fire. Thousands of alien warships encircled Earth, each bristling with weapons capable of shattering moons. From orbit, their barrage fell like rain, a deluge of plasma, missiles, and particle beams. To the Overseer's dominion, this was routine. No world had survived such firepower. No city had endured it. But Earth was no ordinary world. And it had no ordinary defender. The Guardian moved. Slowly at first, as though shaking the weight of centuries from its limbs, but each step sent tremors rippling across continents. Waves crashed against its armored feet as it waded from the ocean, striding toward the coast. The bombardment slammed into its frame, and for a moment the world held its breath. The smoke cleared. The Guardian still stood. Not a dent marred its plating. The attack slid from its surface as if the universe itself refused to wound it. Silver fire pulsed from lines carved into its body, ancient conduits alive with forgotten energy. Then, with a gesture that shook the heavens, the Guardian raised its hand. A spear of lightning erupted from the clouds, tearing through the atmosphere, striking an enemy warship in a blinding flash. The vessel didn't explode, it disintegrated, vanishing into ash that rained down upon the sea. The Overseer's bridge went silent as the impossible unfolded before them. One strike. One gesture. An entire capital ship erased. The Overseer's eyes bulged. Maintain fire. Break it apart. But fear had already begun to spread through his fleet. Their weapons were doing nothing. Their shields flared under storms conjured by the Guardian, winds that battered hulls as if the atmosphere itself had turned against them. On the ground, humanity watched in stunned silence. Crowds filled rooftops, beaches, and mountainsides, their eyes fixed on the Titan who fought in their name. Broadcasts streamed across every screen. Children pointed at the storm-lit horizon while elders wept openly, whispering words that had long since faded from memory. Legends. Prophecies. Warnings carved into stone by civilizations now dust. Earth is never without its sentinel, an old woman in Cairo murmured, clutching her beads. The Guardian waits until the stars forget us, and then it remembers. Elias, the boy on the rooftop in Manila, held his grandmother's hand tighter. The Titan seemed to look directly at him, silver eyes gleaming like twin moons. For the first time, Elias believed the stories were true. In orbit, panic clawed through the Overseer's fleet. Vessels collided in their desperation to retreat from the Guardian's storm. But retreat was not allowed, not by fear, not by honor, not by the laws of the Dominion. The Overseer snarled, his voice cracking like a whip. Deploy the Oblivion Lances. Cut that relic from existence. The command was obeyed. From the largest warships, lances of pure antimatter lanced downward, black spears that tore rifts through space itself. They struck the Guardian in rapid succession, shaking the earth to its core. Mountains crumbled, seas boiled, cities shuddered beneath the assault. The Overseer leaned forward, his tendrils quivering. At last, the Titan staggered. Its massive form sank to one knee, sending tidal waves across the Pacific. Yes, the Overseer hissed. Bleed, relic. Fall. But the victory was an illusion. The Guardian's chest opened, not to reveal weakness, but to awaken something even more terrible. At its core burned a light so bright it pierced the void, a miniature star bound in chains of steel. The antimatter lances sputtered against it, dissolving into nothing. The Guardian rose. And with its rise came a voice, not merely echoing through Earth, but reverberating across the galaxy, entering the minds of every fleet commander, every counselor, every emperor who watched from afar. You trespass upon a world under oath, it thundered. This planet is not prey. It is not yours. Leave, or I will unmake you. Billions heard it. Millions trembled. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council froze in indecision. Yet the Overseer would not yield. Pride bound him, and greed fueled him. All vessels, converge. If this relic stands, the Dominion falls. Destroy it. The Order unleashed chaos. Warships swarmed like locusts, filling the skies with fire. The Guardian met them head-on. Its arm extended, and from the earth itself, spires of molten stone erupted, striking ships from below. With each swing of its colossal blade, summoned from raw energy, it cleaved through fleets as if swatting flies. But for all its power, even the Guardian was not untouchable. Blades of plasma scored its armor. Warheads rattled its frame. Slowly, piece by piece, the Titan bled light. Humanity cried out, helpless to aid it. They could only watch as the Colossus fought against an ocean of enemies. In Manila, Elias whispered, "Don't fall." His grandmother clutched his hand and whispered prayers older than her years. In the council's chamber, silence reigned as the battle streamed live. The archivist, one of the oldest among them, finally spoke, his voice trembling. "It is true. The Guardian of Earth exists. The last sentinel of the old accord. The protector bound to a single world. If it rises to defend, and nothing, can stop it." Another counselor hissed in fear. "Then we must withdraw. If it survives, it may come for us." But others, intoxicated by greed, argued. "If we capture it, if we break it, we could wield its power. The Guardian could be ours." The chamber dissolved into chaos. Decisions fractured. And still, above Earth, the storm raged. The Overseer, refusing to admit defeat, deployed his final weapon. From the heart of his flagship, a sphere emerged, a sunbreaker, a weapon designed to collapse stars. Smaller than a moon, it could still annihilate a planet with ease. The Overseer's laughter echoed across the void. "Let us see if your oath protects you from extinction itself." The sphere ignited, roaring with power. Humanity screamed in terror as the sky itself seemed to burn. The Guardian looked upward, its eyes narrowing with grim finality. It knew this was no ordinary weapon. It was annihilation. Yet it did not waver. Raising both arms, the Guardian called not upon its own strength, but upon Earth itself. The oceans rose in answer. The mountains groaned. The skies split with a storm so vast it dwarfed continents. From every corner of the planet, energy flowed into the Titan's core, a bond unbroken, a covenant honored. The Guardian lifted its blade of stormlight and struck. The earth itself struck with it. The heavens screamed. The sunbreaker shattered, its fragments burning harmlessly in the atmosphere. The Overseer's laughter turned to silence. His bridge crew stared in horror. For the first time, the Dominion understood what it faced. Not a relic. Not a weapon. A Guardian. Bound by oath. Unyielding. Eternal. The battle raged still, but the tide had turned. Warships fled in disarray, their morale shattered. Yet the Overseer, blinded by his pride, clenched his claws around the command throne. No retreat. Not while I draw breath. If Earth has a Guardian, then I will be the one to kill it. His fleet faltered, but his words dragged them back into the fire. The Guardian's gaze fell upon him, piercing the void, seeing not his ship, but him. For the first time, the Overseer felt something he had never known. Fear. The battlefield above Earth was no longer a war, it was a storm of gods. The Overseer's fleet burned in disarray, but the Dominion commander refused to flee. His flagship, the Harbinger of Chains, loomed like a mountain in orbit, its hull bristling with weapons drawn from every conquest the Dominion had ever claimed. Around it, smaller vessels regrouped under his command, pulled back into order by his sheer, tyrannical will. "Hold ranks," the Overseer roared, his tendrils curling with fury. "This is no god. This is no destiny. It is only steel and power, and all power breaks." Yet even as he spoke, his gaze flicked to the Guardian rising from the storm below. Its silver eyes pierced through the void, fixing on him as if Earth itself had chosen its enemy. For the first time in his reign of conquest, the Overseer felt small. On the ground, humanity gathered across continents to witness the final clash. Cities had gone dark, power grids collapsing under the storm. But in every shadowed street, people lit torches, candles, and fires. Across oceans, mountain ranges, and valleys, light bloomed, thousands of tiny flames answering the guardians. The people of Earth did not know its name. They did not know its purpose. But they knew, in their bones, that it stood for them. Elias, the boy in Manila, whispered into the night, "Don't give up." His grandmother wept, clutching him close. And though the guardian could not hear their words, it felt their hope. The bond it shared with Earth was not of command, but of trust. The overseer gave his final order. Unleash the core breaker. The words chilled even his own soldiers. The core breaker was a forbidden weapon, one designed not merely to destroy a world, but to unravel it from within. Once deployed, Earth itself would collapse, oceans, continents, skies, all consumed in a chain reaction of planetary death. From the Harbinger's belly, the weapon emerged, a black shard pulsing with unstable energy, humming like the death of suns. "Fire," the overseer commanded. The shard descended. The guardian's gaze snapped upward. Its systems screamed warnings, Earth itself groaned beneath the oncoming strike. If the core breaker struck, not even the guardian could save the planet. So it moved. With a single stride, it leapt into the sky. The atmosphere cracked like glass as its colossal frame ascended, silver fire trailing behind it. For the first time, the Titan left Earth's surface, rising into orbit to meet the overseer face to face. The Dominion fleet scattered before it, but the Harbinger of Chains did not retreat. The overseer leaned forward, his fangs bared in defiance. "Come then, relic. Show me if you can bleed." The Guardian landed upon the enemy's flagship, the impact tearing hull plating like paper. Soldiers within screamed as the Titan's shadow filled their corridors. The overseer activated his command throne, merging with the ship itself, his mind spreading through every weapon, every engine. The Harbinger became his body. The overseer became a warship. He struck with everything at once, cannons, lances, missiles, blades of plasma bursting from hidden ports. The Guardian staggered under the onslaught, sparks raining from its armor. For the first time since its awakening, it bled streams of light into the void. But it did not fall. With a roar like an earthquake, it drew its blade of stormlight and carved through the Harbinger's decks. Explosions blossomed across the vessel as the overseer howled, feeling each wound as if it were his own flesh. "Pathetic," he snarled, forcing the core breaker closer to Earth. "Your oath dies with your world." The Guardian paused. It knew the overseer was right. Alone, it could not defeat both the flagship and the core breaker. The weapon would reach Earth. Billions would die. Unless. It remembered its oath, "I am the sentinel of Earth. I will defend it, even unto my end." The choice was clear. The Guardian turned its blade inward, plunging it into its own chest. Silver fire erupted as its core split open, not in death, but in release. The chained star within it blazed free, consuming its frame in light. The overseer recoiled, blinded, his sensors screaming as energy surged beyond measure. The Guardian's voice thundered across the cosmos. "Earth shall endure." And with that cry, it launched itself at the core breaker. From the ground, humanity watched as their Guardian became a second sun in the night sky. Its body, once steel and storm, burned into pure energy as it collided with the core breaker. The weapon shattered, screaming like a dying god. The Guardian's light enveloped it, devouring its unstable core, transforming annihilation into rebirth. The explosion should have ended Earth. Instead, it birthed a new aurora that wrapped the planet in colors unseen since creation. The skies burned green, violet, and gold. Oceans shimmered. Mountains glowed. Humanity wept, for they knew what had been lost. Their Guardian was gone. But the Overseer's fate was worse. The backlash of the Corebreaker's destruction tore through the Harbinger of Chains, ripping it apart from within. The Overseer screamed as his throne cracked, his mind severed from the ship he had bound to himself. In his final moment, he saw the silver fire closing in, the eyes of the Guardian staring into his soul. Then there was nothing. The Dominion fleet, leaderless, broke apart. Some fled into hyperspace. Others simply surrendered, their wills shattered. None dared remain. The storm was over. Silence returned to the heavens. Humanity stood beneath skies painted with auroras, knowing they had witnessed something their ancestors had only whispered of. They had seen the Guardian. They had been protected, not by fleets or councils, but by the ancient promise of their own world. In Manila, Elias wept into his grandmother's arms. "It's gone," he whispered. She shook her head softly, tears glistening in her eyes. "No, child. Guardians never die. They return to the earth, to the soil and stone. One day, when the stars threaten us again, it will rise once more." Far across the galaxy, the Council of Imperial Stars trembled. Empires that had once dismissed Earth now whispered of it in fear. The Guardian had proven itself real. And if Earth held such a protector, what else lay hidden in the forgotten corners of the galaxy? Some vowed never to approach the blue planet again. Others plotted, hungry for the secrets buried there. But none could erase what had been witnessed. One world, forgotten by history, had stood against the might of a galactic power, and endured. Because Earth was never alone. And though the Guardian's form had vanished, its presence lingered. In the ocean's depths, in the mountain's heart, in the quiet pulse of the soil beneath every human step, a spark remained. Waiting. Watching. Guarding. The lost Guardian of Earth had kept its oath. And the heavens would never forget.